still see the old institutions. We still see an opaque system of governance. And I just was about to tweet, actually, before coming to talk to you, that the army should listen to the people and should not repeat the same blunder of the Mubarak regime.
And what about you, Mohammed? If you are convinced that enough people want to see you as president, would you run for president?
Well, this is not my priority, David, as I mentioned many times.
Right.
But if people want to see me as president, I would run. But I am very happy to complete what I was set to do, is to shift Egypt from the kind of situation where we were treated as slaves into a free and emancipated people, a new liberated Egypt, and as a consequence, a new Middle East, a new Arab world, a new Muslim world, when we do not have this distrust between the East and the West and all this junk. What we want to see is us to be part of the same one human family, sharing the same universal values, Sir David.
And you wrote in February that in Egypt there is a whole rainbow variety of people who are secular, liberal, market-oriented, and if you give them a chance, they will organize themselves to elect a government that is modern and moderate. You're confident about that?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think, of course, as with any society, David, you have the extreme right, you have the Marxist Party, you have the Salafis, the extremist or Islamist, but we have the rainbow. But I believe in a free and fair election and a representative election, and that's why I want the transitional period to be long enough for everybody to be able to share and cast his or her vote. That at the end you will get a coalition that basically rooting for a moderate Egypt, a modern Egypt, moderate Islam, subscription to human rights, the basic values of freedom of speech, freedom of religion. I think we're not any different from any other country, and this is a unique opportunity to pull Egypt and the Arab world to the 21st century. We have been lagging behind in every area, rather than talk about how stuff like Shiite and Sunnis, like Muslims and Copts. We need to be talking about science, technology, humanities. Time has, the kind of narrative we talk about now is 19th or 18th century, and we need to leapfrog to the 21st century, Sir David. And the gateway to that, frankly, as I believe strongly, is the gateway to all of this is a democratic system.
And in terms of President Mubarak, you mentioned earlier on that the Mubarak camp, that group has to be moved out of power in Egypt and so on. What should happen to President Mubarak? Should he be expelled from Egypt, allowed to live in Egypt? Should he be put on trial for what he did as leader? What should be the attitude to President Mubarak?
I mean, my personal view, and of course there's a lot of anger. You hear now about his huge fortune, and his family. You need about, a lot of the dirt is coming out in the last week or so, Sir David, about corruption, about people enriching themselves, about torture. And however, I think as far as President Mubarak, he's an old man. I would like him to see him, treated with respect, live in Egypt, die in Egypt, as he wanted to say, and give him whatever immunity insofar as his personal self. But of course, all the money that he has accumulated, or allegedly he has accumulated, it has to come back to Egypt. There's no question about that. All the money that has been usurped from Egypt, and with the result that we still have 40% of the Egyptian live under $2 a day, has to come back. And then this transitional year I talked about, David, has to be the beginning of planning, economic planning, social planning. We need to establish a society that's socially cohesive, that economically vibrant, that politically democratic, and we have none of that at this stage. So the transition also will be a period of planning, and once we have a new president, once we have a new parliament, we can then leapfrog, jumpstart the process.
And what do you see as the sort of the most crucial foreign policy issue? Is it connected with the power of Iran?
Well, I think, again, there's a lot of foreign policy issues that we need to revisit. We and many other Arab countries have concern about the Iranian ideology, but the solution to that is that we need to engage with Iran. Egypt, for example, does not have a diplomatic relation with Iran for the last 20 years, which is, in my view, is totally ludicrous. You know, every other Western country have a relationship with Iran. In fact, when you have disagreement, that's the time when you need to engage, and you need to reconcile your differences. We need to continue to work on the Israeli issue and continue to push for a Palestinian state. What happened, David, in the last 20, 30 years in the Arab world, that people have been repressed by their own government, feel unfairly treated by the outside world, and this was a ticking bomb toward radicalization, toward extremism. The Mubarak regime sold this theory to the West that after Mubarak there will be chaos, there will be a religious state, and that that we will be hostile to the U.S. and Israel and everybody else. These were all fictions. I mean, a democratic Egypt and a democratic Arab world will be in a much better position to present their grievances on a negotiating table and have the assets to hopefully arrive at a fair and equitable solution, because there will be balance of power. They will have assets to put on the table. Right now, there is a disequilibrium in terms of balance of power in the region, a sense of humiliation, a sense of anger, and therefore what you see is increasing radicalization in the region. So this is, I used to call it pseudo-stability, and this has been proven in the last few weeks.
And you mentioned that a few weeks ago, the people of Egypt, you sensed there was no hope, they had lost hope. And then after the revolution, you said they had found hope again. Is that still the feeling today? Is there still that optimism to go forward to what you've been talking about, the new Egypt? Is there still real hope?
Very much, David. Yeah, very much. I think we had 60 years with a culture of fear, and people lost hope that anything could change. We have been mobilizing for the last few years. Since I came back, at least for a year, I have been engaging with the young people, because I put my lot with the young people. They are the future. They have no hidden agenda. The older generation has been either co-opted by the regime or have been trying to protect their perks. And I realized from day one that if we need to change, we need to change with the young people, and that's what happened. And I was also trying to make them understand that change will come on their hand. There is nobody who is going to come on a white horse and provide them with salvation. Luckily, that was what happened. But you look at the Egyptian now, David, it's a different people. A couple of weeks ago, I looked at the Egyptian eyes. They were dead souls. I look at them now, they are full of self